Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we are starting Masechtas Yevamos daf Beis Amud Aleph. Of course, the beginning of the Mishnah. This is also the beginning of Seder Moed. So, as the name of the Masechta Yevamos discusses a situation where a man and a woman are married, they don't have children. So, in the event that the man dies, so this woman is now zokuk. She is required to marry her husband's brother, and they must perform yibum. In the event that yibum is not done, then chalitza is required. But we are going to see that there's sometimes, because of the relationship that they have to one another, that no longer is there a chiyuv of a zika, there's no chiyuv of yibum. And on this, we begin the Mishnah. Chamish esri nashim. There's actually 15 different women. Poitros surasehen v'sara surasehen min chalitza min yibum ad sof ha'olam. That not only do they not have to do chalitza, there's no din of chalitza, there's no din of yibum, there's no requirement at all. They're completely pater. Not only those women because of their relationship to the man, but also surasehen, their co-wives, and also the next level of co-wives. All of these people, as we're going to see, are pater ad oilam. So let's look at Rashi. It says, She'im ha'isa achas mehen nesuel achiv. Let's say one of them was married to a brother, vo isha cheres, and this man also had a second wife, which is the sarais, umeis b'lo banim. He dies without children. Shtein Peturos. So the Gemara is going to explain why not only is the woman, certainly it makes sense, she's pater because she's related somehow, but even her tsara, even their co-wife, who she is not related whatsoever, but by virtue of the fact that she is married to this man who is a karov to this other woman, so therefore they're pater. So now we're going to spend this entire shiur just going through the Mishnah at its great length, discussing these 15 situations. Ve'lohein, bito, daughter. So what is that referring to? So if we would imagine that there are three brothers, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Now Reuven is a father also, and he has a daughter, and her name is Sarah. So again, Reuven and Sarah is a father-daughter relationship. Now, Shimon married Sarah, which is allowed. Basically, she married her uncle. Now, Shimon also had a tsara. There was also a co-wife, Rivka. So what ended up happening is Shimon died. So obviously, at that point, Reuven, there's two brothers left, Reuven and Levi. Reuven obviously cannot do yibum to his daughter Sarah, but he also, there's no chiyuv of him doing yibum to Rivka. Now, if he was the only person in the picture, the only brother, then they would be pater, and that would be it. Even Rivka, who's not related to Reuven, because Reuven and Sarah were father-daughter, so therefore Rivka is also pater. That's what it means when it says sarasehen or pater. When it says sarasehen means, again, let's imagine now Levi is in the picture. So again, Shimon died. Reuven can't marry them. So therefore, Levi does. Levi ends up marrying Rivka. And then all of a sudden, Levi dies. So Nebuch, this woman Rivka, she had a husband, Shimon. He died. She did yibum with Levi, Shimon's brother. Now Levi dies. So again, Reuven once again will not do yibum with Rivka, which is the sarosar sehen, because he's the father of Sarah. So therefore, this is the first of the 15. That's what the word bito means, the daughter. So if the man who's zokuk has a daughter, so obviously you're pater from doing chalitza and yibum to your daughter, but also to the tsara. Ubas bito, For that matter, if let's say the relationship of Reuven and Sarah was not father to daughter, but father to granddaughter, it's daughter's daughter, or Bas Beno, it's his son's daughter. So again, this relationship is still that Reuven would not be able to marry Sarah, so therefore the Sarotehen, which would be Rivka in our case, he would not he would not marry her either. So that's a third situation, granddaughters. Bas Ishto, which is your wife's daughter, which is a nice way of saying your stepdaughter. So if Reuven was married and his wife had a daughter, so that's his stepdaughter. It's not his daughter, but it's his wife's daughter. So because of that also is enough that you're not allowed to marry your stepdaughter. Ubas Bina, Ubas Bita. Also her daughter, her son's daughter, or her daughter's daughter. So it's the same thing. You can't marry your stepdaughter. You can't marry your great stepdaughter either. Doesn't matter from if it's your wife's son's daughter or your wife's daughter's daughter. It's still not allowed, and therefore, because of you don't do yibum or chalitza with her, you're not going to do yibum or chalitza with Rivka the Tsar either. Continuing the Mishnah, chamoso. So what is chamoso? Is your mother-in-law. So imagining that, again, the relationship between Reuven and Sarah is his mother-in-law. In other words, Reuven's wife's mother. So in that situation, you also are not allowed to marry your mother-in-law. So therefore, in this situation, again, Rivka is also pater. For that matter, ve'em chamosoi ve'em chamov. Also, your mother-in-law's mother and your father-in-law's mother you're not allowed to marry them either. Says Rashi, what is chamoso? Shemes balwa, that her husband, this is your mother-in-law, and her husband died, benasa echav, and married your brother, umes b'labanim, and she dies without children. So again, in that situation, you do not have the ability to marry her. You can't do yibum. And for that matter, your father-in-law's mother, says Rashi, shtein asuros lo mishum erva k'dechsev ervas isha uvita lo segala as bas bena ves bas bita. So it says meferish that one is not allowed to marry your step daughter's daughter. So the question that's asked over here by number 3 is Chamesh Asri Nashim Bito. There's an issue of your daughter that says Bito Ubas Beno Bas Ishto. So Bito Hainu Bas Ishto. It says one of them is your wife's daughter, right? Bas Ishto is the next one, which we say is your stepdaughter. So isn't your stepdaughter l'chayra the same issue as Bito, your daughter? So in this Rashi says the hacha bebito manusasu kamairi. Here we're talking about the daughter that you had is from a relationship of being ma'anis. Says number 3, bita manusaso bas ishto alide kedushin. So bas ishto is referring to it's your wife's daughter through kedushin, and bito manusaso, it's your daughter, but it was only for your ma'anis, this woman, which literally means you forced yourself upon her, and then she ended up having a daughter. So that's also, even bita manusaso, also one is not allowed to be with her either. Okay, and the isha ID kedushin. So he said, however, you cannot learn out from isha ID kedushin mashmishu ishus or mikrachrinim nafkule. Okay, so there's again the second pasuk that's coming to tell you 2 different cases: the daughter through kedushin, the daughter through anusasoi. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. Achoiso me'imo. So what is this case? So you have Abraham and Sarah that were married. This is their second marriage. Abraham in his first marriage had a boy, Reuven, And Sarah, in her first marriage, had a girl, Levi. Now, Reuben and Levi, therefore, are not related, even though their father, the mother of Leah, and the father of Reuven, Abraham, are now married. It's a second marriage. Technically, Reuven and Leah have nothing to do with each other. They're not blood related whatsoever. So what ended up happening is Abraham and Sarah in the second marriage ended up having a child together. We'll name him Shimon. Now Reuven ends up marrying Leah. Again, they were allowed to because they're not related. Because Reuven again and Leah came from the first marriages of Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah again only got married to each other in the second marriage. So these children are not really related. So Reuven and Levi got married. Again, as they're not related, then Reuven died. So the question is, how about Shimon, who is this child from the second marriage? So we say that he cannot do Yibum since it's his maternal sister, namely because they share the same mother, Sarah, because Sarah had Leah from her first marriage, and Sarah had Shimon from the second marriage. So because it's Achais Me'imo, it's a maternal sister, so therefore Shimon is not allowed to do Yibum on Leah. And for that matter, if Leah had a co-wife, not her either. Okay, that's what Achaiso Me'imo means. Now, Achais Imo is referring to your mother's sister. So instead of it being the case of, as we just said, your maternal sister, it's talking about your mother's sister. So in this case, if Sarah had a sister, let's call her Hagar, and she had a sister, so again, Shimon would not be allowed to marry Hagar, because that is actually his mother's sister. And since it's his mother's sister, he cannot do Yibum with her. Fine. V'achais ishto, another of the 15 is a situation of achais ishto. What does that mean, your wife's sister? So you have two brothers that marry two sisters. And does happen. Two brothers marry two sisters. Now, unfortunately, what happens is one of the brothers dies. Now, she's my wife's sister. That's achais ishto. It's my wife's sister. So even though, again, two brothers can marry two sisters, if one brother dies, so that other brother cannot marry her because he's already married to her sister. The Eishes Achiv Mi'imo. And also, Eishes Achiv Mi'imo, your brother's wife from your mother's side, and your maternal brother's wife. So on this, let's look in Rashi. She'ein chiyuv yibum el b'achav min av. The whole chiyuv of yibum, as we're going to see many times, is dafka, the brother from the father. Dechsiv ki yeshu achim yachtav. It's only when it comes to paternal brothers to have this chiyuv. V'yalfinin achma achim b'nei Yaakov malaholan min av alpha b'she'in min ha'im hachinam meloshna. And therefore, since this brother's wife is only maternal, so therefore there's no chiyuv of yibum. It's only when it's on the they're related through their father. As we continue to Beis and Beis, ve'eishes achiv shelo hayabo lamai. If you have a brother, your brother's wife, in which you were not alive at the time. So Rashi explains, Kegon Reuven shemes blo banim. So Reuven had no children and he died. V'noilad lo ach l'achar misa. And it happens a lot of times and from families, so he ends up having a brother that's born, but it's only after Reuven had already died. So Reuven and his brother, Levi, they're really both complete brothers, but they were many, many years apart. So Reuven died, and only afterwards Levi was born. So in a normal situation, if Levi was alive, then he would do Yibum for Reuven's wife, Reuven's wife. But Levi wasn't alive when Reuven died. But Amad Shimon, there was another brother, Shimon, that did Yibum. V'yabim ishto. V'lo isha cheres umes b'lo banim. So Shimon actually had a second wife, and Shimon died without kids. The naflu shteim lifnei Levi. Now both of them fell into Levi. Shteim paturos lefi she'eshes Reuven shenises l'Shimon asur Levi v'anish karsel lefi she'eshes ach b'karis b'shar rayos. So it's very interesting that because at the time that Reuven died, so Reuven's wife would not be able to marry Levi. Levi wasn't born yet. But let's say Levi is born right away. He still doesn't do Yibum. He's never allowed to do Yibum with her. So Shimon, his brother, did Yibum. Now Shimon dies. So now Shimon died. Still this brother Levi will not do Yibum for her or Shimon's other wife. Says Rashi, V'eshes achiv sholhai bolamo shemes kaidim leidasai, that he died before he was born. Lo sharle, he's not allowed to do Yibum. Dechsiv ki yeshu achim yachtav. It has to be when the brothers are both alive. Shoisalehem yeshiva achas ba'olam. They had to at least be here at the same time. Hilchach mishemes Reuven. When Reuven died, Nesra al Levi iser olam ki eshes ach sheish banim. It's just like eshes ach when you do have children. The whole din of Yibum is not that there's no children. But this, once you say eshes ach with banim, then you can never marry her. There's no din Yibum if they end up having children. Fine. Okay. And then let's continue in the Mishnah, the kalato. And it says, and your daughter-in-law. So again, if the relationship between Reuven and Sarah, as we painted this picture, that Sarah is his daughter-in-law, namely, it's his son's daughter, and then his son died, he doesn't do Yibum on his daughter-in-law, and therefore he also cannot do Yibum on the Tzara. Hari elu patura sorasein v'sara sorasein min achalitzim negibum ad soifa oilam, which again is interesting why the Mishnah repeats itself. The coolin in all of these situations, imeso, if let's say in all these situations, imeso, if let's say he dies, ome aino, or miyun is performed. Now miyun is a situation where you have a girl who is less than of age. She doesn't have a father. So because of that, we say there is a Kedushin Durabanan called Mimer that she's allowed to marry. However, she could always remove herself, just like a get, but instead it's called Miyun. And that's what it's referring to. So it says, if he dies, or they did Miyun, on his Garshu, or there was a divorce, Oshanimsu Ionis, or it turned out that this person was an Ionis, they couldn't have children, Sarasein Mutarais. So in that situation, the Sarasein are mutter. Fine. So the Iyata Yochel Loimer, okay, fine, stop there for a second. Let's look at Rashi. So Bekulin Shemesu Shemesa Bito, that the daughter died koidim achiv, before the brothers. Mi'aina. So this is referring to that she died shemesa bito, that the daughter died before the brother. Mi'aina, she did yibum. So hechem shkach mian babito varihu kayim ve'ein miyum ela biyasaima. It's only mian is only if it's the yasaima, if there's no father. So mishkach l'kain shavia Hasiya lol echad, the father was already married her off. And his Garsha, and then she got divorced because she katana while she's a katana. Meshuv in Levi or Shuspa. So the din is that normally the father, and we say as beaten asati shazeh, the father has the rights to marry her. But if he already did it, we don't say that he can do it again. So therefore, she's considered to be able to do yibo, to do miyun, even in a situation where the father's alive. Okay, let's see. I think that's one of the questions here. Yes, question 16, TB 16. It says, V'kulani mesoi Ma'ayno, Heicham Shkach Mian Babito. How can you say there's mian for a daughter, a son-daughter relationship? Hukayim, if the father's alive, then mian el b'yisayma. So how can you say that there's ever a case of mians? As we said, the father did marry her off, and she got divorced while she was a katana. So the father no longer has rishus. And then she ends up marrying. And then she ends up going out with mian. So that is how it's possible. TB 16. Fine. So let's continue. So we're saying mutaros. So he's saying all these situations, the Sarasayan are mutter. Fine. So you can say v'iyata yochel leimer b'chamoiso ve'em chamoiso ve'em chamov shenim sa'ayonis o shemi'ayno. And you cannot bring down the case of these other cases of chamoso, the case of your mother-in-law or your mother-in-law's mother or your father-in-law's mother. So those situations you cannot claim. Says Rashi, Shkvar Yoldu mi'acher, that she already gave birth mi'acher kaidim shenisu l'achim, before she married the brother. Hilkach lav islandesi. That would not be a case of an islandess, because that means she can have kids. Umiyun nami leka. You can't say the case of miyun. Shari gedolos hein. They're obviously gedolos. Nein mamenes eli saima katana. It has to be that you're a katana, as we'll see later on. So it's not possible that you're going to be a mother-in-law. First of all, it shows that you obviously had a kid, so you're not an islandess. It's obviously you're not a katana, so there's no din miyan. Okay, fine. Ketzad poitroi sarasen. What does that mean that you potter the tsara? So we kind of explained this already. So he says hoisa bito. Let's say example again, the case of the daughter. That Reuven is related as the father-daughter relationship to Sarah. Okay, so let's say that was the relationship. Reuven is the father, Sarah is the daughter. Obviously, he can't marry her. He's not able to marry Sarah's co-wife either. Oh, achas mikol rayis ha'elun nasois la'achiv. They're married to the brother. V'lo isha cheres. There's another. He has another wife, umeis, and then this person dies. Kashem should be to Patura. Obviously, he can't marry his daughter. He's not going to marry his daughter. So kach tzarasa Patura. He also doesn't marry Sarah's co-wife either. Holcha saras bitai. Let's say the daughter of the tsar went v'nises lach v'sheni and married a different brother. Right. So that's what we said. Imagine that again. We have Reuven, Shimon, Levi, as we said before. Shimon dies, but Shimon's wife can't marry Reuven, but she can marry Levi. So because Levi is not there's no relationship. It's just like another. That's not a problem. Now Levi dies. So Kashem Shasaras Bita Patura Kachsar Sarasa Patura Afilu Hein Meya. So again, Reuven will still not be able to marry, even though it's true. Shimon died. And now she went over to Levi. Levi died. Still, this woman who is not going to be zokok to Reuven, she never was and she never will be, even 100 times over. Ketzad imesu sarasem mutaros. What does it mean if they died that the tsar is mutar? Haisabito o achas mikol rayis o elun huisasal achiv. So again, let's say we're talking about again this situation of the daughter. Reuven was the father and Sarah is the daughter. V'lo isha cheres. And again, Shimon has two wives. He has the wife Sarah, who is the daughter of Reuven, and he also has another wife, Mesa Bito on his Garsha. Let's say his daughter dies, or she gets divorced, and then all of a sudden Shimon dies then. So Sarah Muteras. In that situation, the Tsar is mutter, because there's no link anymore to his daughter, because his daughter got divorced. So therefore, he's now mutter to the tzara. Any situation where miyun could be performed, but it was not done, sarasa chaletzas v'mistevemas. The tsar will do chalitza but not yibum. Says Rashi, which is how we're going to stop actually. It says kigain sha'erva katana. So you have this erva. Let's say the daughter is a katana. So therefore the daughter can actually walk out of this marriage. But she doesn't. Umeis achiv, and again in this case, let's say Shimon dies. Since the kedushin of Reuven's daughter to Shimon, who just died, is only D'Rabbanan, Zikas nefilasim D'Rabbanan, Einu poteres sarasim and chalitza was yavim asura. So therefore, what ends up happening is that because it's only a D'Rabbanan level, this connection of the daughter to Reuven's brother, Shimon, who died, but the reality is that this Shimon actually has another wife, so because it's a real marriage, because the other wife was a Gedola, so that's a Kedusha D'Oraisa, so therefore we really would encourage her to do Miyun. However, if she doesn't do Miyun, if she did Miyun, then he could do Yibum. But even if she doesn't do Miyun, we will say she should still do Chalitza, the other woman, because there is this stronger connection of this Kedusha D'Oraisa compared to the Kedusha D'Rabbanan, and therefore, again, we would encourage her to do Miyun, so that the father can now marry his daughter's Sarah, because it will show like they were never married to begin with. But if she doesn't want to do Miyun, so then Chalitza still must be performed. Ad Kan.